Sorry about that, Dan. Thanks for the patience and letting me back in and out and in. So hope you can hear me okay. Thank you very much. You as well. I didn't realize the barber shops were open, but it's looking good. Very jealous. Nothing to work with on this end, so. Oh, very good. Thank you.
Hi, Dan. This is Cindy. I'm just testing my audio. Can you hear me, Dan? Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I believe so, yes. Call to order the regular board meeting of January 12th, 2020 at 7 p.m.
2021, Mr. Supervisor.
2021 at 7 p.m. Welcome to 2021. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which is one of the toughest parts of this meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind all the board members that because this is a Zoom meeting, that we will need to also state our location when we call our roll. I'll begin. Clerk Cindy Berry is remoting in from Chesterfield Township, Michigan. Supervisor Acciavatti.
Here virtually from the Chesterfield Municipal Complex.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here from the municipal complex, my office, Chesterfield.
Trustee Anderson.
Present in my residence in Chesterfield Township, Michigan.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Here for my residence in cloudy, cold Chesterfield, Michigan.
Trustee Joseph.
I am present from my home in Chesterfield.
Trustee Vosburg.
I'm present from my home office in Chesterfield.
All members are present. Item number 5, presentations. There are no presentations tonight. Item number 6, department reports. Are there any department reports or board member board updates? We'll start with Trustee DeMuynck.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. From Leisure Services Department, by now the Chesterfield Connection should have landed in your mailbox. It is also available for viewing online at parks.chesterfieldtownship.org. For all things recreation, skip to page 8, for you will discover multiple offerings for all ages brought to you by the Leisure Services Department. All activities require pre-registration and enrollment can be either done online or by calling Leisure Services. Secondly, seeing our seniors smile is something we aspire to do. Help us, help them. Beat the wintertime blues. We are challenging all kids to write a letter or draw a picture to brighten their day, now through March 31st. Chesterfield Leisure Services accepting your letters for delivery to a lucky senior recipient. Practice your penmanship, drawing skills, and grammar while filling someone else's bucket with joy. These simple gestures of kindness adds volumes to the lives of our seniors. Come celebrate with us on Monday, January 25th from 3 to 4 p.m. Seniors are invited to unite in the Senior Center and put the finishing touches on a habitat for their feathered friends. Bring your own supplies to add beauty and design or use ours. All houses are pre-built, waiting for your decorative touch and for your display at your home. Cost is $5 per person. Advanced registration is required. Space fills up fast. Martial arts, learn self-defense any which way you choose. Experience the Korean art of Taekwondo, which includes a greater emphasis on kicking, or join the Japanese style of karate with their preference for punching techniques. Both programs enhance self-esteem, build confidence, develop discipline, and strengthen the mind and body. Classes begin soon. Registration 949-0400, extension 4, in person, by appointment only, or online. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Trustee DeMuynck. Any further public or department reports from either department heads or board members?
Mr. Supervisor, I do have a very brief report.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you. The Clerks Department is currently scheduling all of our late night passport nights as well as our community shred day. We do anticipate those events, as we have done in the past, will take place this year. We are going to be completing that schedule. Of course, we do need to make accommodations due to COVID-19 requirements. However, we do plan to have those events this year, and we are currently in the process of establishing those and creating the calendar for them. Please make sure to check our website for updated dates and any changes regarding those events. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Clerk Berry. Any further department reports or board updates? Okay, seeing no further reports, we're going to move on to item number 7, which is the consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
Item 7, consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda items are permitted. 7A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of December 22nd, 2020. Item B, approval of the agenda with addendum if necessary. Item C, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. Item D, approve a recommendation from the Department of Public Safety to renew a computer program from PowerDMS in the amount of $6,868.99 from GL number 205-301-801-000. Item E, approve a recommendation from the Department of Public Safety to renew our agreement with DVS Analytics in the amount of $7,079 from GL number 205-301-934-000. And item 7F, approve a request to pay General Code invoice number CH3504-1211-2020 for $4,200 from GL number 101-228-934 for the Clerks Department and invoice number CH3504-1211-2020 number 2 for $1,350 from GL number 591-441-934 for the Water and Sewer Department for Laserfish licenses.
Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve as stated.
Motion by Clerk Berry,
Support.
support by Trustee Vosburg. Discussion. Comments from were any public comments submitted, Clerk Berry?
There are no public comments submitted on this agenda item, Mr. Supervisor.
Seeing no further discussion. Motion by Clerk Berry, support by Trustee Vosburg to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8 is the regular agenda. Item 8A.
Item 8A is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Acciavatti to appoint Trustee Kathy Vosburg as the Board Liaison to the CDBG Committee through December 31st, 2021.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Anderson,
Second.
Support.
support by Clerk Berry. Discussion? I gotta make your full screen here so I can see everybody. Quick one from me. I would like to thank Trustee Vosburg. She's been working with the new CBDG rules, the competitive grant piece of it, and that whole team for quite some time. And best practice is to have this as a committee, and this is formalizing that, and I look forward to continuing that. So thank you, Trustee Vosburg. Any further comments on agenda item 8A? Motion by Trustee Anderson, support by Clerk Berry to approve item 8A as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8B.
Item 8B is to approve an appointment of Clerk Cindy Berry as full-time board member and Public Safety Director Brad Kersten as Public Safety Representative to the Cannabis Committee through December 31st, 2022.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Trustee Vosburg. Is there support? Support by Trustee DeMuynck. Discussion. This is an extension from our last board meeting when we extended the Cannabis Committee. As a requirement of that resolution, we need to take the official act of appointing the full-time elected official along with the public safety representative, which is laid out in the motion. Any further comments or discussion from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Just a quick question in terms of, I realize the term is a 2-year commitment. This committee's met for 2 years. I felt very comfortable. I think Co-Chair Berry, very comfortable at the completion of the first 2 years that we had actionable information for the board. What is the necessity for a 2-year appointment on this board? Will we then be at a 4-year mark? I mean, at the 4-year mark, will we be prepared to take some action, or are we satisfied to, I guess, look busy for another 2 years? Because we did a lot of work the first 2 years, and when all was said and done, more was said than done. So I'm curious as to the scope and intention of this reappointment or continued appointment, and what are we doing?
I'm not really sure who that question was announced to, but I will take a shot at it if anyone else would like to comment in on that as well.
Yeah, Mr. Acciavatti.
Trustee Anderson.
Yes, sir. I just wanted dovetailing what Trustee Joseph said. We were prepared. The co-chairs, I believe, were ready to render a decision or a recommendation. I believe it was around November, and that was kind of put on hold from the existing committee that had met for the past 24 months. I just want to mention that at this time. So thank you.
Any further comments from the board? It's my belief that the cannabis issue is never going to be over for quite some time. The agenda item last meeting to extend the Cannabis Committee was put forward by Clerk Berry, was approved by this board. This is just following through with what was ordered in that resolution, which is to appoint a full-time elected official, which I'm doing, and appoint Director Kersten as the public safety member. Regardless how this shakes out, and I do appreciate all the work that was done the prior 2 years with Trustee Anderson, Trustee Joseph, and Clerk Berry being the elected members on that board, on if we hang on to our opt-out position for recreation, or if we change that position. As you are aware, by doing nothing, we are opted out of medical, and by opting out of recreation, we are in a holding pattern. And that was very thoughtful and the right place to be. So in order for that to change, you need to, a board member or multiple board members would need to bring a proposal forward. Even if that does happen, I would expect this committee or some form of this committee to be in existence for a long, long time. If we stay where we are in an opt-out of this land use issue, there's going to be a lot of other things popping up, whether there's public safety issues, land use issues, or changes that we can make incrementally to deal with this. If we do, as a board, choose to opt in, now the real work's going to get going as to the layers, the locations, and the ordinances. And Clerk Berry, I know, can probably speak a lot more to the regulatory and the land use ordinances. Navigating that through the entire system will require this committee, and maybe even an expanded committee, due to the legal challenges that you see all around Macomb County and Metro Detroit on this issue specifically. So I'm confident that this issue is not going to go away quickly, and I'm confident that this committee will be in existence for 2 years and probably much, much longer once we go through. So, but again, I'm not on the committee, and I'm just one piece of the puzzle here. Any further comments from the board? Do we have any public comments, Clerk Berry, on item 8B?
We do not have any public comments submitted on this item, Mr. Supervisor. If I may just address Trustee Joseph's comments, being my former co-chair on this committee, I believe that he brings up some valid points, and I am eager to get the new, that we have all of the new board or the new committee members on this committee, get them up to speed as soon as possible so that we can bring something forward for the board to consider as soon as we possibly can. Obviously, I don't want to rush that. As you pointed out, it is very important that we bring something forward that is meaningful and that will satisfy the board. We were prepared to do that in November, and I believe as soon as we get the new committee members, up to speed on things, and of course, obviously want their input, and we know there's a little bit of a learning curve there, but my hope, Trustee Joseph, is that we can bring something forward to you as soon as possible.
Any further board comments? Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you, Clerk Berry, for the continuation. I appreciate your explanation, Mr. Acciavatti, and I also appreciate we're a little bit far askew because, as you pointed out, this really is just the appointment of the participants on the board, but just as an opportunity to gain some clarity. I appreciated what you said in terms of to move past the current position of an opt-out. A member of this board or members of this board will bring a motion forward and no longer a part of the Cannabis Committee. I want to make sure that from a inception standpoint, as we're re-engaging the committee, I will be participating at least to whatever level we can, just as an attendee at these meetings. But I am interested in where Clerk Berry is going, Director Kersten is going. The two additional committee members on this, I think, have been fairly clear. I can't speak for anybody, but their past statements on the record, I know Trustee Vosburg has made it clear that we opted out. That's a perfectly good position to take, and I don't know if she's modified from that, but to me, it is, I would like to provide some direction to the committee in the way of, are we preparing to look at what types of licenses and so forth? So I'm not next board meeting, certainly, but I think in relative certainty and soon. If the committee doesn't bring it, I'd like to bring a motion forward, and I'll look for support from like-minded individuals to just take a position as a board on whether or not we're moving past the opt-out. Because I agree with you, the committee's work will really just be beginning when we move past our current position, which is a complete opt-out. If we are entertaining licenses, then the committee's work will really, truly begin because there's a lot of detail in that. But the first step to me, and according to our attorney at our last Cannabis Committee meeting, was very clear. We can't do anything until we make a decision as a board whether or not we're moving from our current position. That's the real threshold where real decision making is done. Again, I think it's just a matter of where people are, and that motion needs to come sooner rather than later. So obviously, I would like to see Trustee DeMuynck and Vosburg get up to speed with what work that was done and where they could benefit from more information, and then bring it to a vote and see where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to that. Any further comments from the board? Or from any other members on this Zoom call, and one more check-in with Clerk Berry on public comments.
There are no public comments on this agenda item.
Gotta go back a page here. Motion by Trustee Vosburg, support by Trustee DeMuynck to approve item 8B as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8C.
Item 8C is a recommendation from the CDBG Committee to execute the agreement with Spalding DeDecker for the Senior Park CDBG Project for the construction documents, permitting, and bidding in the amount of $19,057.50.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion on item 8C?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee DeMuynck,
Support.
support by Trustee Vosburg. Discussion, and we do have a representative on the line from Spalding DeDecker, I believe, if was on the line.
Yes.
Oh, there he is. I was worried sick about you there for a second. Any questions for the board? We are all aware on February 11th, 2020, this board did unanimously approve, I guess the former board, to proceed with the competitive CBDG grant for an outdoor senior center project. The approval amount back then was unanimous. This will move us to the next step of the process, which is signing up with a prime professional, and the team has chosen Spalding DeDecker. Questions on item 8C? I lost you, Jeremy, here. Clerk Berry, has there been any, oh, there you are. Has there been any public comments submitted on item 8C?
There have been no public comments submitted on this agenda item.
Any comments from the board? Motion by Trustee DeMuynck. Oh, did I hear somebody? Motion by Trustee DeMuynck, support by Trustee Vosburg to approve item 8C as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Jeremy. Item 8D.
Item 8D is to approve a recommendation to award the Edgewater Street Paving SAD Project 1025-2020 to the lowest responsible bidder, Peake Asphalt, Inc., in the amount of $980, and to approve the total project cost in the amount of $332,589.72 from General Ledger number 101-446-929-000.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve, Trustee Joseph.
Motion by Trustee Joseph,
Support.
support by Trustee Anderson. Discussion. This is a private road special assessment district. I'll give a quick overview. This has been in front of us dating back to April 14th, 2020. It was in front of us for Resolution 3, April 28th. November 10th was Resolution number 4. December 22nd was Resolution number 5. It is a 100% project funded by the petitioners who requested their private road be paved. There will be no long-term impact to the budget. However, there will be a $332,000 general fund expenditure, and then that money gets paid back for a duration of time. This is to award the bids to the lowest responsible bidder, and construction is expected to commence this spring. And I do believe Mr. O'Connor is on the call here as well. Any questions from the board or comments from the public? Clerk Berry.
Mr. Supervisor, there are no public comments submitted on this item. However, and I implore you to allow me to be out of order for a moment. We just had a public comment on the last agenda item drop into the system, and I would just like to read that. It was very brief, as soon as I could. I will leave it up to you as to when I read that.
We can. I'll finish up this item, and then we'll circle back around with item 8C.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Any further discussion on item 8D? Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Anderson to approve item 8D as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. I'm going to rewind here to item 8C to read the public comment.
And Mr. Supervisor, in the meantime, while that was going on, I did receive another message on that public comment asking me to disregard.
Oh, okay. Item 8E.
Item 8E is to approve a recommendation from Public Works to complete initial study of the Maurice DeMuynck Anchor Bay Pump Station Maintenance Project by working with OHM Advisors at a cost of $79,200 from GL number 101-266-801-000 and Detroit Pump at a cost of $82,897 from GL number 101-266-930-000 for a total cost of $162,097. Accompanying this item is a recommendation to approve budget amendments to GL number 101-266-801-000, increasing the budget from $1,000 to $80,000, and GL number 101-266-930-000, increasing the budget from $20,000 to $85,000.
Do I have a motion on item 8E?
Move to approve, Vosburg.
Motion by Trustee Vosburg,
Support Elliott.
support by Treasurer Elliott. I'm going to turn it over for a quick presentation to Assistant Director Johnson.
Thank you, Supervisor. So I got a few slides here that I'm going to present this evening. Obviously, there's a couple items on the table. Number one is the study in general, and the second is going to be the budget amendment, which I'm sure you guys have questions on. So to start this, quick background, this station was built in 1977. The total cost of the project was about $3.5 million with a local share of $135,000. It's roughly 1 square mile of the township that's affected by this, as you can see in the blue area right there. It's roughly 839 parcels, which information was pulled from our assessing department. On the next slide, I'm going to go over the steps that the steps are showing you the actual station itself. So I apologize for the crudeness of this, and I wish I had a laser pointer to kind of guide you. But essentially, where the number 1 is where you would walk into the station. That is a ground level. From there to the right of number 1, there's stairs to go up to the number 2. And that room is the control room. where we kind of have some supplies that are stored, any kind of maintenance stuff. And then if you walk to the right to number 3, that is where a lot of the work begins. So just to the right of number 3 is where our pumps begin. So the diesel engine is right to the right of number 3. From there, you'll see a shaft going to an angle drive at the far end right there where his cursor was. That angle drive drives the shaft that goes down all the way down to section number 5 to where the blue color is, where I'll call it the water. So that the section that we're going to be affecting right now in this station is going to, or this study, the main section is going to be the shaft that goes from number 3, that room, down to number 5, as well as the angle drive that is in room number 3. So that's going to be part of the Detroit pump portion of this project. Everything else pertaining to that station, OHM and us are going to work together to provide a study on this building as a whole to see what is needed. Obviously Public Works has been maintaining this building for the entire, 43 years that it's been in operation. This obviously is a township-owned property, and accompanying this also is roughly 24,000 lineal feet of storm sewer that accompany this in that area in blue that I showed you on the map a slide ago. So just a quick overview of the station from the side to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. But all these 5, there's a 6th room below number 1 that's also going to be incorporated into this, but it wasn't necessary for this particular discussion right here.
Kevin, for scale, what's the depth from the top of the station to the bottom?
I believe it's roughly 30 feet.
Okay, I'm sorry, I messed up your presentation here, but.
You're okay, no problem. The next slide, please. So the four main items that are going to take place in this study, and the picture there, just a sidebar, that is a picture of one of our diesel engines. It's a great example of what was on the previous drawing there, but this is the live picture showing what the diesel engine looks like. The shaft going in the black as the cover of the shaft, and the gray angle drive to the right of the picture. That is the whole engine, or the whole pump minus the shaft going floor. So in this study, we have 4 main tasks. One's going to be project evaluation and management, vertical asset management planning, long-term capital improvement, and then the pump inspection and maintenance by Detroit Pump. So I'm going to take you one by one on these. So the next slide will show you task 1. And all this information, not necessarily got to read right now, or maybe you already have read it through the packet, because I just pulled this right from the OHM recommendation. But basically what this is going to do is coordinate and observe pump testing and using the data for CIP options. We're going to review permitting requirements, coordinate testing, capturing photos, just getting a lot of detail on the building and everything in that building to see what we have. Obviously, we'll be meeting with OHM and Detroit Pump on site to figure a lot of things out and make determinations. But that portion of this is just the overall evaluation and management of that building and everything that needs to be done as a whole. The second task, the vertical asset management, that one is really going to work on reviewing the condition of our assets, using the record drawing to populate our asset inventory, determining consequence of failure on all the existing equipment from HVAC to the pumps themselves, electrical, the building. We're going to basically go through all the bells and whistles on this building to see what needs to be done, even from the roof, if the roof needs to be redone. And then it's going to also provide an asset management plan on how to move forward with the capital planning that needs to take place for this station. With the third task, the long-term capital improvement from the first 2 items is going to come. They're going to work on looking at the building's HVAC. How it hasn't worked in quite a while. We got to figure out what makes the most sense. We got to get new lighting. Every chamber, if you will, all those numbers 1 through 5, and the 6th one I didn't number. There's all lighting underneath all those sections. It is dark under there. There used to be lights, but it wasn't the piping wasn't meant. It rotted away from the years of just being down there. from the water and the moisture. So we got to get more LED lighting, proper explosion-proof kind of light fixtures and such to keep the stuff safe and functioning so we can work effectively and safely in these areas that are normally black as night. And then along with that, we're going to look at evaluating the existing pumps. So there are 4 existing pumps in this station. 2 of them are electric motors that were replaced. Those were used to be diesel. They were replaced roughly 2002. And obviously the diesel pumps you saw in the photo that were installed in 1977. It's very hard to find parts for those nowadays. Obviously 40 years ago, it was simple, not so much anymore. So what we're gonna do is find alternative options, looking at, does a third electric make sense? Does natural gas make sense? Does another diesel make sense? We're gonna vet all options, put all options on the table of what makes sense and what's most cost effective to be able to pump the water that's needed to keep this area dry. Along with that, we have the pump inspection and maintenance by Detroit Pump. So OHM worked with Detroit Pump. There's not very many businesses that do this kind of work on pumps this large. They're basically one of maybe 2, but they're one that's well versed in this type of equipment. And OHM recommended that we work with them, so we were taking the recommendation to work with Detroit Pump on this project. What they are going to do, as I showed in that little sketch at the beginning, is this cost right here is going to be them removing the vertical shafts and then inspecting them and repairing them as necessary. This is, and then there's an additional cost that I don't have on here, another $23,000 that's going to be, we're going to pull the angle drive off and they're going to be inspecting that and repairing that as well. Now what's going to happen with that is they are going to take that shaft and the angle drive, pull it apart, do a deep study on it to see how deteriorated or how much repair it needs. That will help us determine if we need to pull the other 3 shafts and angle drives, or if we feel that they are sufficient to keep running the way they are. So they're going to determine the efficiency of it, what needs to be done. So pulling one will help us determine if the other 3 need to be pulled, and if so, what the estimated cost is going to be. It'll help us give a cost moving forward if there is one needed. We can tell you right now, at minimum, there's going to be at least one more angle drive that's got to be pulled because there is a little bit of shimmy. We're definitely aware of that, but beyond that, this study will help us determine the remainder of these shafts and angle drives and what needs to be done for those. Next slide, please, Dan. So with this initial study, the total cost, so the OHM initial cost of it includes their $79,200 and the first 2 items on the Detroit Pump portion, the $35,000 and the $25,000. The the other additional angle drive repair install cost came just a little bit later after this study was done. As you can tell from the proposal, that was on July 30th. So we've been doing a lot of discussion, a lot of internal, making sure we have all of our ducks in a row. We don't want to miss anything here. So we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're being as effective, as efficient, and as diligent as possible on this project. It's a lot of money, and we obviously take it seriously. We don't want to be messing around here. So we're really doing our best to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row, if you will. So with that being said, when we looked at the cost, what happened with the main point for this taking so long, number one was researching a lot of the paperwork from Bay Harbor. There's a lot of paperwork. It can be spotty, if you will. There was a lot of stuff from where it started with Spalding working on it. There was a lot of litigation and whatnot in the middle, and then AEW ended up finishing it. I'm paraphrasing this, so don't quote me, but that's essentially what kind of went down. So there was a lot of legal stuff we were trying to go in and out through to determine what was actually happening here. But based on a document we found It was a public hearing that was held on March 14th of 1977. We found a document that kind of says that the township itself is responsible for the maintenance of the station. So what now, obviously maintenance is a vague term. What does that mean? What does that entail? In speaking with, we talked with Josh, with Mitch, with obviously Director Coddington here from Water and Sewer, and we actually met with the Ways and Means Committee on, I believe it was like December 2nd-ish. We had numerous discussions and research to figure out, you know, based on the documentation, what made sense. In the meantime, what we felt was right was that by pulling and researching this shaft and everything, this to us was deemed a maintenance cost. We weren't sure when this cost was going to appear. Through a lot of the conversations we had, we were trying to figure out when this would make sense. At the time the budget was going on, it was not apparent to us that this was going to be done as fast as we move forward with this. So we were not really, it was kind of up in the air at that point in time, hence why it was not on the budget. We only had the minimal amount in our budget. Once we got everything kind of figured out, unfortunately the perfect storm came to where the budget got approved, this came down, and now we have to make an amendment. So I understand there may be a concern as to why this wasn't a part of the budget initially, that maybe we should have been, you know, prepared for that. But we worked as diligently as we could to make sure that we want to do the right thing and making sure that we're not, you know, just spending money to spend money or charging residents to charge residents. So that is all the comments I have on this. I believe I have a gentleman from OHM, Mr. Siklich is here with any questions pertaining to this study as well, but I welcome any questions that the board or I guess that the public has.
Any questions from the board on item 8E, and I will reserve mine here until I hear from everyone. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Great presentation as always, Kevin. I think you covered, you know, a very difficult project that's been months in the making very well, very succinctly. The one area that I would like to get your opinion on, and you know, curious, the issue involving the disclosure or the discussion during the budget process. So we're making a budget amendment, you know, really a month after or so we approve a budget for an entire year. The maintenance costs go from 1,000 to 80,000 in essence maintenance, but the project cost, we make a budget amendment of $1,000 to 80,000 and 20,000 to 85,000. So the total cost of the project obviously wasn't known, and I know you're pretty invested in bringing as polished of, you know, project numbers as possible to the board. But what do we say to the residents or those who say, look, this was an intentional withholding, that the budget process was really a lot of false reporting, if you will. They knew that they had a project that was a couple $100,000 that was going to take place, but the placeholder that was put in the budget was 1,000 and 20,000. And then a month later, they come back and they go, you know, I think one of the things you said in your presentation was, you know, a perfect storm. Storms are not predictable. This I know just because, you know, we've talked about capital improvements and necessary improvements and required improvements. This has been on the radar in your department certainly for better part of 6 months or even longer. So this wasn't a storm in the sense that we didn't know it was coming, and we certainly knew that it would be, you know, landing at some point in 2021. It wasn't able to be buttoned up in the way that you like to button projects up in time for the budget. But what do we say to the residents? Say, why not just put a placeholder in the budget, recognizing that you're going to have somewhere between $150,000 and a $200,000 necessary maintenance repair? Why do you pass a budget and then you know, the local media talks about our optimism and our healthy budget and our everything looks good, but it has the appearance, I guess, of did we sit on something purposefully until we got through the budget process. We pop up on the other side a month later and we say, oh, we need a budget amendment of 200K, and it was not known at the time that we were deliberating on the budget. How does that look from a transparent standpoint, and what do you say to those residents?
Yeah, that probably is going to be a better one for me to answer once it gets around to me. I will comment in on that, Kevin, as well.
In terms of putting the project together, I would like to hear Director Johnson, talk to that issue. He touched on it very briefly in his presentation. I think he has an opinion on it. He was attentively listening. I'd like to hear his take on it and yours. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand how it could look like we're trying to hide something and throw it in last minute. It's never our intention. I'm one to always want to be forthcoming with all information that's given. There's never a need to hide anything, because everything is transparent. Everyone has this, it's information that's given to the public. So I would just say, maybe it was I don't mind taking responsibility if I made the wrong decision to not put in the budget, put it on there or not. That's on us, and I could take responsibility for that. Maybe it should have been on there. But like you said, I like to make sure we have accurate numbers. So maybe putting more in, the concern comes into play where you don't want to budget something like, 200,000 and it's only 100,000. Now it looks like we're over budgeting something we don't need to, and, things like that. So I guess that's where my mind comes from on that. So it's like, that's why I like to be as accurate as possible on things. So it's never an intention to hide anything. I would apologize to anybody that, if it makes them upset, but I welcome any comments from the public. If they want to contact me, I'd be happy to discuss with them.
A quick one from me on, let me go to Kathy. Let me answer this one as well as I can. When, dating back 4 years, when I built my first budget and presented it, there was big placeholders in here for this pump station that was not utilized or not used. My ask was only, this is a 50-year pump station with my experience and with all the experience in heavy infrastructure, and we're coming up on that time period, so we knew that was going to have to happen. Now, when you put a budget together, you're making your best probable estimate of what expenses are going to come. So we over budgeted in multiple prior years. Enter what highlighted this was the high water, frankly. Water was going around in a circle there. We thought we maybe had another 4 or 5 years before this very deep dive came in. The water came in and actually was back flowing into this pump station, which put a new emphasis on this. Then the discussion comes, what do you put in here? Well, your best guess for what the impact would be on the budget at that time was the operating costs. We budgeted a higher number for this in 17 and 18. That was the best guess at that time, and there's multiple reasons. One is the revenue side of the equation, and the big question that needs to be answered at some point down the road. There could very well be a much larger project at the end of this with the 5 miles of underground storm sewer system, which is generally the responsibility of the residents that storm sewer system services. It's not like sanitary or water. So now the discussion turned to, is this a special assessment district? We had some discussion as a board on revenue on this parcel, and we know where that led with the cell tower revenue that could come in. Now the document, now we're ready to do this study and replace and repair some of these shafts. That 2002 event was paid for with general fund when they changed 2 of the diesels into to electric. So the choices are going to be either general fund for operating or the district, which is a special assessment district comprised of 434 acres and over a mile. That's basically the snapshot of it. We didn't have the information back then. If we did, it would have been in that budget as a number, and I'm very comfortable with our fund balances and with the performance of our budget that we'll still be overperforming with this expenditure. Any, Trustee Vosburg, I just want to answer that one question for Trustee Joseph.
Right, thank you. I too was wondering the timing of it. We're so new into our budgets, but that's been answered enough. The other issue was this is just for the study and do necessary immediate type repairs, correct? You did, Mr. Supervisor, did I understand you to say this is going to be an ongoing larger expense at some point?
Kevin and Steve and the Orchard Hills representatives might be able to speak to that overall system.
Yeah. So what's gonna happen, Trustee Vosburg? Great question. Is this isn't gonna be a start by all they're doing is an examine. They're gonna pull and examine one of the angle drives and one of the shafts. If it's deemed that we're gonna, based on one of the 4 options, we're gonna get back from what options we're gonna move forward with in these pumps. If the consensus is okay, it makes sense to stick with the shafts and the angle drives we have, they'll repair that one and install it. At that point, this whole study is going to evaluate that building. We're going to come forward with the study at the end is going to say, we need to fix the HVAC, we need to fix the electric, we got to fix the sand and sediment, or pull the sediment out in the wet well at the bottom. We got to replace the remaining pumps. So there's going to be a larger cost beyond this that we're not doing. That's going to be a future discussion with the board and how we're going to approach that. So there's none of this maintenance or repairs are going to get done. It's just evaluating to see what needs to be done so we can get an accurate cost to present to the board on what we need to do next and plan it moving forward.
Right. So tonight we just need to approve a revenue source to pay for this study, but it's going to lead to a higher cost project that is going to need could need a different type of funding. Is that correct?
Correct. You are
All right.
correct.
So tonight is maybe the easier decision. What comes next could be something that will need a whole lot of work. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Just had a quick point of clarity, and then my question, Mr. Supervisor. I heard you say this sort of falls out of the, this is not sanitary sewer. This is primarily stormwater that we're talking about.
100% stormwater.
So the cost, going back to Trustee Vosburg, so we're looking at, tonight's expenditure is the study. The study comes back indicating significant cost. You're not talking about sanitary sewer, enterprise fund money. You're talking about general fund money or a special assessment district.
That is correct.
So in terms of the budgeting for this, you mentioned in your explanation that there were years previous that we sort of over budgeted in anticipation for, and then tried to sort of bide our time, if you will. The conditions were such this year with the high water levels that it was really at this point a decision made, game over. We need to know what we're working with at that pump station, and we need to know what those costs are going to be, which is the necessity for this expenditure now. Fair statement?
Yeah, somewhat.
Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Kevin Johnson and the entire team, and I don't know if Steve, you want to chime in here, but this has been a big one on the list, and this is a very important first step to take an asset that was put in almost 45 years ago. We know that 5, 10, 20 years down the road, there's going to need to be a capital improvement schedule and plan for this. The operating cost is borne by the general fund. The bigger project, there's bigger plans in place for Jefferson down the road, maybe a decade down the road or shorter, about a complete remodel and rebuilding and refunctioning of that. And this storm sewer system has got a huge pipe right under Jefferson, right on the edge of it. That is right now with the high water level, it's full, which is actually helping keep the pipe. If there's problems in that pipe, you won't know until the water goes down. And it's part of a bigger discussion. We are prepared, we are ready, and doing this now for what could be a very massive infrastructure project laid out over the next 5, 10, 15 years is the very responsible thing to do. And thank you so much, Trustee Joseph, for your comments. Any further comments from the board? And is there any public comments, Clerk Berry? Maybe let me take that moment to go there.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, we have received one public comment on this item.
Will you please read it into the record?
Yes, sir. This comment comes from Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard Drive. The DeMuynck Pump Station repair cost and stormwater runoff. Streets, roads, and highways are the primary mode for moving goods, people, and services, but also are a major source of stormwater runoff. Local governments, quote, Macomb County, unquote, are responsible for the streets, roads, and highways they own. Impervious surfaces decrease the amount of rainwater that can naturally infiltrate into the soil and increase the volume and rate of stormwater runoff. The DeMuynck Pump Station services the stormwater runoff from Jefferson Avenue, Book Court, Forbes, Mallard, and Pheasant are all county-owned roads, in addition to servicing Chesterfield Township's Anchor Bay Harbor subdivision. By township ordinance, the residents that live in the Anchor Bay Harbor subdivision are required to maintain the ditches that serve as a retention pond for stormwater runoff from their property and the county-owned road. Sidewalks are not permitted. Funding sources. SAW grants for wastewater asset management plan. Why did Gordy Wilson, AEW, omit this from Chesterfield's $3 million SAW grant, plus Chesterfield's $400,000 match? St. Clair, Michigan's SAW grant covered both stormwater and wastewater asset management plans. See link. And then there is a link that is provided to a Voice News article. Every time there is a county responsible project in Chesterfield, like spraying Phragmites or $200,000 additional to repair Jefferson Ave beyond the Salt River Bridge from Sutton Road and Killawald Street, and that repair fell short of both roads. The Macomb County Drainage Commission invoices every month approximately $80,000 monthly for operations and maintenance, and when there is a sizable repair, Chesterfield receives an additional separate invoice. The county has no problem asking for funds from Chesterfield Township. How much of the repair costs for the DeMuynck Pump Station is going to be allocated to Macomb County roads? The Bolt versus City of Lansing decision has precluded most municipalities in Michigan from establishing stormwater utilities. The decision requires stormwater assessment to be based on the unique contributions of individual properties. A data-supported cost allocation of the shared repair costs should be made based on contributed volume, an NPDES type study that calculates the areas of impervious surfaces, the source of stormwater runoff. Chesterfield has paid AEW thousands of dollars for NPDES studies and to file a NPDES report to the state every 4 years. There should be some data already available. Why are charges always one way? If the DeMuynck Pump Station fails, Jefferson Avenue, a Macomb County-owned road, floods. This issue of Macomb County cost allocation for repairs to the DeMuynck Pump Station and the failed piping from the pump station to the bay was brought to Supervisor Acciavatti, and this was never addressed. The project plan timeline is in error. Per the dates, all the tasks have been completed and project closeout is Friday, 1/1/21. Project timing is critical to track work product deliverables and invoicing, not just sending an invoice every month for payment. In the private sector, a project manager would never bring documentation that is in error to the board of directors for an expenditure approval. The board of directors are the one for their corporate investors. They would never approve an expenditure for a project plan with errors or identifying other entities that could be financially responsible. The vice president the project manager reports to would be getting a call. Thank you, Paul S. LaFata, 48055 Mallard Drive, Chesterfield, Michigan.
Thank you. Any further public comments?
There are no other public comments that have been submitted on this item.
Any further board comments? Trustee Joseph.
Mr. Supervisor, I would just like to address Mr. LaFata's concerns. I agree with the lion's share of his assessment regarding the county obligation to the roads. The area that was not included in Treasurer LaFata's or Resident LaFata's letter was the fact that in addition to Jefferson Avenue flooding, so do the basements of the residents near Jefferson Avenue, and that is my concern. I don't know what obligation the county has or cares about in terms of keeping the water, but we know that it's not just Jefferson Avenue that is impacted. It's not just a county road. And so the question I have is, what obligation do we have, it's rhetorical in nature, to the residents that live in that area who are affected by stormwater? That's the area of concern for me. And if the only thing was the flooding of a road, which is owned by another governmental entity, I would be voting no on this for the reasons listed by Mr. LaFata and many others. This is a county expense if you're talking only about the damage to the roads, but it's not just that. And so the residents, and I believe Mr. LaFata is one of them, that neighborhood will flood out, and those residents will have a major problem if that pump station is not operational. I think we even had, and Director Johnson can back me up on this, we had a situation where a resident was calling in to the 911 dispatch saying, I live near the pump station, it's not operational, and my water is encroaching on my house, and it's going to be in my basement if you don't turn that pump on in an hour or so. And we know historically that pump station not being operational impacts residents' property, and we do have an obligation to see that those basements aren't flooded out. And if we do nothing, we're going to leave them in a real bad situation. So I would strongly recommend that we pursue as much help that we can get from the county as it relates to the safe travel of their roads. But in terms of making sure that the pump station is adequately functioning and properly working to keep those residents from being flooded out is our obligation. So for that reason, I'll be voting to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. A quick follow-up from me. You really nailed it, dating back 4 years ago, knowing that this pump station is vital to the township. And it's vital to 839 parcels, a square mile of our township. It's complicated by the fact that it does receive water from multiple roadways, most notably Jefferson, and it also receives stormwater from 2 county drains, the Peltier and the Dykema, portions of those within that square mile of our township. Our responsibility is to follow through with the 1977 agreement that our township made, petitioned by the residents in that district. There's a district there that's a special assessment to build this pump station. It was requested, required, and owned by the township. This is not a Macomb County Department of Roads or a Drain Commission asset. You are absolutely correct. The Road Commission and the Drain Commission should bear their burden of the costs. The funding mechanism for the Drain Commission is the residents. They do not have a mechanism for this type of expenditure. Their mechanism is to just create a special assessment district and fund the benefiting properties accordingly. So the end result there will be each resident in that district getting a bill for the Drain Commission piece of this, if that's even possible. The Road Commission piece of it is a similar dilemma in that the township requested this. The district we requested this, that it services. So ultimately, it's going to fall on, at some point, the township's going to continue to fund the operational cost of this. And when does that operation cost turn into a situation where a special assessment district is created? If the special assessment district is created, I expect every parcel, 839 that exists currently today, to be a part of that, along with the Macomb County Department of roads for their portion, which will need to be unraveled, and the Macomb County Drain Commission. Now, the Drain Commission piece of it, there's no funding source for them. That would just go to the district pursuant to state law. So there is a lot more work to do on this. I'm just very happy that we're doing it now and not when a failure comes. We're doing it at the perfect time. This is going to need to be resolved in the next 4 or 5 years. I don't see that this infrastructure lasting another 40 years without taking this close look at it. So there's going to be a whole lot more work to be done on this, Trustee Joseph, and I look forward to getting it right and meeting our obligation to keep this area dry. We have a motion by Trustee Vosburg, support by Treasurer Elliott to approve item 8E as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry. Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, OHM and
Thank you, Board.
Director Johnson. Item 8F.
Item 8F is to approve a recommendation from Public Works to complete the America's Water Infrastructure Act, AWIA, Risk and Resilience Assessment, RRA, and Emergency Response Plan, ERP, by working with OHM Advisors at a total cost of $16,500 from GL number 591-441-821-000.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as stated.
Motion by Clerk Berry.
Support.
Support by Trustee DeMuynck. Discussion, Director Johnson and Steve.
Yes, good evening again, Board. So this AWIA is a mandatory assessment that has to be done, is due by June 30th of 2021. Basically, it's like it says, it's a risk and resiliency assessment as well as an emergency response plan that's going to help create an assessment on how to protect our infrastructure from natural hazards like flooding, winter storms, tornadoes, as well as malevolent acts like cyber intrusion, contamination, vandalism, things of that nature. It strictly pertains to the water system only. It has nothing to do with the sanitary sewer. So it's strictly our water system, just making sure we're protecting our PRVs, gate wells, things of that nature. So OHM is going to help us with this study to get this thing put together professionally and get it submitted by June 30th.
Questions from the board for Mr. Siklich?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. And good evening, members of the board. I just wanted to add to that, Kevin. That was a great description, but there's two components to this, and the first component is the risk assessment, which is going to identify what likely risks exist in the system, and this is going to be completely private, secure. It's not going anywhere. This document doesn't get sent to Eagle. It's going to be internal for your use only. And the second part of this is then the emergency response, and that's where you start identifying what to do in the event that these disasters actually happen, and to make sure you have those systems in place. So the two components of that: first, risk assessment, that's due in June 30th. And then the emergency response plan, which is the response to that assessment, is due 6 months following. So you're going to have two submittals. One is going to be that risk assessment, and then 6 months later is emergency response. So there's no incentive to doing that early. Because the earlier you submit that risk assessment, the earlier you have to submit your response plan. So it's going to be an interactive, discussion with staff and us throughout that process. And at the end of it, it's a certification form that gets submitted to Eagle and nothing else. And that document is used, wholly by your staff internal to the township for protecting your water assets.
Questions from the board? A quick one from me, if Steve or Kevin could comment on the security of our freshwater potable drinking system, not only in Chesterfield Township, but nationwide, is obviously of utmost concern. We're in great shape, and we've got SCADA that will know if there's a pressure drop. These are pressurized pipes that when there's a drop, the DPW knows. Kevin, you and I we've done a lot on cameras and on locking systems, on raising the pressure reducing valve, which are maybe some vulnerable spots for our hydrant program in the winter and inspections of our 3,500 hydrants, gate valves. So we do have a lot in place here. We have a little bit different risk than some other community, or a little less risk, I guess, than some other communities with, or different, I guess. I'd call it different risk, and that we do not have a above ground storage facility. And I know lots of discussion on that is when something like that is feasible. So maybe just any comments on the industry, I guess, to protect all of our potable drinking water. And there's a whole lot more than that in testing weekly and the whole smash for any kind of natural or unnatural potential contaminants. And any further comments on that would be great, just to know that we are on top of it. This is a mandatory thing, and it actually makes perfect sense as a supplier of fresh water to our residency.
Yeah, absolutely. The ones that this targets the most is the source water. So like Great Lakes Water Authority is probably the biggest proponent. They have the biggest portion of this because they're actually making the water, they're treating it, they have chemicals they're storing. Their threat assessment obviously is huge because they're supplying water to 88 communities in this area. So, you know, we bring the water in from Great Lakes. So thankfully, you know, we're just making sure, like Dan said, you guys were gracious enough to approve last year to get cameras for all of our PRV stations where the water comes in. So now we can see if somebody comes into those buildings. We have proximity readers to make sure that if somebody comes in, we'll know who it is. You know, so our portion we've improved on, and we've got it secured, but obviously making sure we had a plan to make sure it's even more secure is even better. Great Lakes is doing the same thing. They're making sure that they have, you know, gated areas, only certain people can get into their buildings. They obviously treat the water with you know, chlorine, things of that nature. They're doing a lot of testing, lead and copper testing. They have their disinfection byproduct testing. There's a lot of stuff that goes on to make sure the water stays clean, safe for everybody to drink. And this is one way for the government as a whole to make sure that we are protecting ourselves in case there is a natural event or occurrence of some sort, that we are prepared to handle the situation. Obviously, working in conjunction with public safety, they will be involved in the conversation with this to make sure that everything makes sense and that what we're doing works not only with public safety, but with Great Lakes Water Authority, the state, things of that nature.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? And Clerk Berry, now might be a good time to check for public comments on item 8F.
I'm checking now, Mr. Supervisor, just waiting for our system to update. There have been no other public comments submitted on this agenda item.
Any further comments from the board? Motion by Clerk Berry, support by Trustee DeMuynck to approve item 8F as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Item 8F passes. We have 5 items from the Treasurer's Office that come to us every year around this time. Item 8G.
Item 8G is to approve a request by the Treasurer's Office to collect 100% of the Macomb Intermediate School District 2021 tax levy in the summer and adopt Resolution 2021-01.
So move.
Motion by trustee
Support.
Anderson, support by trustee Vosburg. Discussion.
No, that was Elliot.
Treasurer Elliott. Oh, I'm sorry. You supported. Treasurer Elliott was the support?
That's correct, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay. Motion by trustee Anderson, support by Treasurer Elliott. Trustee Vosburg.
Yeah, I have I support this. I just have a question. In the document, it said the ISD appoints somebody to negotiate contract as to the costs of collecting. Who on our side negotiates with them?
The treasurer's office.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any public comments on item 8G?
There are no public comments on item 8G.
Any further board comments? Motion by trustee Anderson, support by treasurer Elliott to approve item 8G as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8H.
Item 8H is to approve a request by the Treasurer's Office to collect 100% of the L'Anse Creuse School District 2021 tax levy in the summer and adopt Resolution 2021-02.
Do I have a
So moved.
motion? Motion by trustee DeMuynck,
Support.
support by trustee Vosburg. Discussion. Any public comments, Clerk Berry?
There are no public comments on item 8H.
Seeing no further discussion, we have a motion by trustee DeMuynck, support by trustee Vosburg to approve item 8H as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8I.
Item 8I is to approve a request by the Treasurer's Office to collect 50% of the Anchor Bay School District 2021 tax levy in the summer and adopt Resolution 2021-03.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Clerk Berry,
Support Elliot.
support by treasurer Elliott. Discussion. Any public comments on item 8I? Should be noted
There-
that the request, you saw L'Anse Creuse and the ISD collect 100% in the summer, and Anchor Bay collects 50. That's a decision by the school district. Is that correct? Kind of a rhetorical question.
Yes.
So, any comments submitted via the internet portal, Clerk Berry? Public comments.
There have been no public comments submitted on this item.
Motion by Clerk Berry, support by Treasurer Elliott to approve item 8I as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8J.
Item 8J is to approve a request by the Treasurer's Office to collect 100% of the Macomb Community College 2021 tax levy in the summer and adopt Resolution 2021-04.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Clerk Berry,
Support Vosburg.
support by Trustee Vosburg. Discussion. Public comments.
There are no public comments submitted on this agenda item.
Motion by Clerk Berry, support by Trustee Vosburg to approve item 8J as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8K.
Item 8K is to approve the request by the Treasurer's Office to collect 50% of the New Haven School District 2021 tax levy in the summer and adopt Resolution 2021-05.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by trustee Anderson,
Support, Elliott.
support by treasurer Elliott. Discussion. I'd like to thank Treasurer Elliott and Deputy Treasurer Clark for all you do. This is your last item here on the necessary bureaucratic step of us passing these resolutions every single year. Thank you very much. Any further comments from the public, Clerk Berry?
There are no public comments on this agenda item.
Motion by trustee Anderson, support by treasurer Elliott to approve item 8K as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee DeMuynck.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosburg.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9 is the addendum. There are no addendum tonight. Item 10 is public comments. Clerk Berry, has there been any public comments submitted via the internet portal?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I have 2 public comments submitted under this agenda item.
Would you please read them into the record?
Our first comment comes from Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard Drive. If this was discussed at the December 2nd Executive Committee meeting and approved, no one took the time to review the timeline. It is the first Township Board meeting of the new budget year, and there is a request for a large budget amendment. 2021 budget before board approval. The SAW grant managed by AEW should have included a stormwater asset management plan. Like St. Clair, Michigan, there were multiple cities and townships that took advantage of the available funds for both. Today's request for funds could have been avoided. This is just another expenditure that reinforces the need for a township manager. Our second public comment has been submitted by Joe Kadich, 32825 Sutton Road. The recent attempts by soon-to-be ex-President Trump included trying to invalidate the election results through the courts, about 90 cases rejected as having no merit, meeting with the state legislative bodies to invalidate the results in Michigan and in Washington, D.C., threatening election officials to overturn results, Georgia, then calling for demonstrations in Washington, D.C., exhorting the crowd by calling for an insurrection that resulted in the Capitol building being overrun and congressmen, senators, and staff sheltering in fear for their life. When the session resumed to accept and certify the election state by state, about 100 congressmen and 6 senators still objected to the count, claiming the elections in certain states should be invalidated. Fortunately, they failed and the election was certified. The FBI is now issuing warnings that more demonstrations are being called for all state capitals. We experienced this last year in Michigan, coupled with the plot to kidnap and possibly kill our governor. As our local elected officials, I request that you, 1, inform the public your position regarding whether Trump's behavior is acceptable or criminal. 2, whether you agree with his accusations in trying to invalidate the elections in certain states, including Michigan. And 3, whether you support either removing him under Article 25 or impeaching him. Those complete the public comments that have been submitted for this board meeting under public comments.
Item number 11, board comment. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Didn't have a whole lot of comments tonight. I, as a rule, try to make a habit out of addressing concerns posed by residents to the board. I'll start first with Mr. Kadich. His questions seem to have more to do really with a personal feeling about what the president did or didn't do. This board obviously has no ability to impact any of the decisions or events on a federal level. I don't have really an answer and see the need to go through the list of do I support this and do I support that. Those are federal decisions, and I will do my best to represent the township always and answer questions as I see an ability to impact them. This is not one of those moments, so I'm not sure what I can do for Mr. Kadich's questions. Treasurer LaFata points out a few issues that I happen to agree with in terms of the asset management plan and the lack of discussion, meaningful discussion on the 2021 budget. I did appreciate during the discussion on this during the regular agenda, Director Johnson referencing it as a potential oversight and his profound willingness to take responsibility. I don't believe you attempted to hide anything, and I want to be real clear, Mr. Johnson. There was no attempt in any way that I saw you as trying to hide anything. You have no skin in the game, if you will, in terms of what the board's direction as it relates to the budget is or isn't. You will simply and have consistently worked with whatever it is the board directs you to do. That's been your position as long as I've known you, and it continues to this day. So really, you have no responsibility there, and I appreciate your willingness to accept it, but it's not yours. The question comes into play as I frame the question, and that is, what do we say to residents? We, the elected officials, are the ones responsible for answering for the budget, what we approve, when we approve it, why we approve it. And in this instance, I happen to agree. We could have done a better job of outlining anticipated costs. And as I think I heard the supervisor say, we've over budgeted in years past. Perhaps that would have been a good move this time, given that we had months of deliberation on this project. We knew it was coming. We didn't know the exact amount, no pun intended, but it's water under the bridge, if you will. We know that we got work to do over there. And to LaFata's earlier point regarding what is the county's interest in this roadway, as I indicated, I vote yes on this agenda item because I know the impact for the residents that elected us to make sure we keep water out of their basement, what impact doing nothing on that pump station will have. But I do recall some really heated back and forth when we approved a resolution in support of something very critical to this region. And the number that went out in that resolution was that the inclusion of the F-35 and the vibrant base brings with it $700 million to the region. That was the number that we passed in our resolution. And if the county has interests that lie in Chesterfield Township, I think we need to be aggressively at the table with the county stakeholders and unafraid to simply say, what portion of that $700 million do you intend to earmark towards Jefferson Avenue? What portion of your $700 million regional benefit, because Chesterfield residents bear the bulk of the responsibility for anything that prohibits us from developing on the south end of our township in support of our base. When we make concessions in support of our base, when we sit down for the sustainability study and it's clear that our township bears a greater responsibility for uncomfortable things associated with that $700 million to the region, who from Chesterfield is going to be in the room with the county stakeholders and dare to ask for more gruel? Because we are passing special assessment districts to residents who live on roads that are virtually impassable. We just approved one tonight. A county road where the residents have for years have said they can't make their way up and down the street, and the county simply says, we provide you with a road. You have the road. And they say, well, the quality of the road is impassable. So they've actually taken the step to incur the cost of putting in a road that doesn't destroy their vehicles. That shouldn't be. That shouldn't be. Now, we did get some benefit in terms of county unit pricing and things, but there's a very strong argument to be made for why that total expense is a county expense. So when you start talking about flooding roads and the stormwater mitigation costs associated with that, there's a legitimate argument that said this is a county expenditure and we need advocacy, strong advocacy, and somebody needs to be at the county. It's unfortunately been taken out of my hands. I'm not on the committees that meet with the county stakeholders, but we need to have a very strong voice advocating for Chesterfield residents. And this is a long time in the making, and I'm okay with the decision we made tonight to try to make sure that we keep water out of the basements of the residents near that pump station. But moving forward, it's clear this township needs a strong advocate on the county level, and we need to be demanding that our residents are taken care of. And let's find out where that $700 million in this region is going, because it doesn't seem to be coming to Chesterfield. Thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. As usual, kind of rough to follow. Trustee Joseph, well stated, sir. Thank you. And I'll keep it to wishing all of you out there hopefully a better new year, and let's hope we get this pandemic behind us. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Vosburg.
Thank you. I don't have any additional comments tonight.
Trustee DeMuynck.
I don't have any comments either tonight. Thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. My comments are very brief. First, I'd like to thank the board for their indulgence with no video for me tonight. I apologize for that, and thank you for your patience. Secondly, is that with regards to Mr. Cage's comments, I don't believe that this is the place to have a mostly political conversation. I believe most of his comments and questions to us were in fact political in nature. And while I love talking about politics probably more than just about anything, I don't believe that this is the place to have that conversation, but would be more than happy to have that conversation with him privately. Mr. Kadich, if you would like, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you privately. I will go on to say, though, however, that I do believe I do disagree with some of the premises within his statement, and I will leave it at that. Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor.
Treasurer Elliott.
I'd like to thank my colleagues here tonight for the insightful comments on the various water and sewer issues that the township faces. I'd also like to thank Mr. Johnson for taking me on an extensive and very informative tour of all of our facilities, of the pump station and the other things. It does help to be able to have a real tour where you actually see what we're talking about. So that was very informative, and I want to really thank him for that. I want to thank the board for approving the agenda request from the treasurer's office tonight, and Deputy Clerk Ellen Clark for her very hard work in the office and on putting those items on the agenda. And I wish everyone a good week. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple quick ones for me. The two public comments, Mr. Kadich, I agree with the former speakers on the political nature of that. I will say happy 2021. We've had quite a 2020, and if there's one thing that we can all do is be a little nicer, be tolerant. Our world is kind of getting torn apart on multiple levels between the pandemic and the horrible political season. We all have a part to play in that, and that is it starts with being kind and nice. Mr. LaFata, I expect yourself, along with everybody that's in that assessment district that requires that storm sewer to work, to keep their basements clean, their roads dry, to partner with us for the discussion. Trustee Joseph, you asked a question of who's in the room and who's responsible. We are. The entire Board of Trustees is in the room and is responsible. One of the frustrations when I walked in the door was, how come we're not getting those road improvement projects? And you're seeing Jefferson Road Bridge, Sugar Bush, and a lot more on the horizon. I will be giving a roads presentation at the next board meeting that will shine some light on what is coming in Chesterfield and some of the tough decisions that we are going to have to make. Trustee Joseph, you had another question about the economic benefit and regarding Selfridge in a resolution that was ultimately came down from Senator Lucido quite some time ago. The road funding's a whole different pie. It's a whole different pot, and that money that can only be spent on roads that is PA Public Act 51 monies, and that can only come from vehicle registration or from gas tax. That issue's not going to go away. The fixing of the darn roads, you know, the problem's getting worse, and I think next week you'll see the real pickle that not only Chesterfield is in, but virtually every municipality in southeast Michigan in the tough decisions that we're going to have to make, and some of the bureaucracy. I would like to close with thanking Treasurer Elliott. When we start talking about funding sources for all sorts of things, grant opportunities, a comment was made as to why the SAW grant wasn't extended to include this stormwater pump station. That's a great question, and that's a question that I have. That 2012 to 16 board, that would have been a great time to start this discussion, so that we're ready for it now or the next year. Now, we're still in great shape with that pump station. We are chasing down every possible funding option, every possible refinancing option, and taking advantage of all of the opportunity out there. And there's a ton of it. State revolving programs, trust funds like you saw with the various park improvements, the $1.5 million grant for Salt River. So having Treasurer Elliott there has been, I just want to thank her very much for troubleshooting and looking at each and every one of these and making sure that we're getting our fair share here in Chesterfield, because we got some big improvements that are necessary down the road. Item number 12 is adjournment. Our next board meeting is January the 26th at 7 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Trustee DeMuynck, support by Trustee Vosburg to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. We are adjourned at 8:37 p.m.